Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to be talking about symmetry on a graph. So let's just draw a simple graph and let's draw a parabola that's centered at the origin. So let's just say that's the origin, and this is just a simple parabola and it's centered at the origin. So what's one thing that you can sort of tell when you look at this parabola? Well, if you look at the y-axis, you can kind of see that when this parabola is like halfway reaches its like vertex, it sort of reflects. So this left half is sort of like reflected on the right half, and all of it reflects across the y-axis. It's sort of as if you have a mirror. Let's say you have a mirror and you have a person standing on this end of the mirror. I apologize for my lack of artistic skills, but if you have a person standing at this end of the mirror, their reflection is going to be literally the exact thing at the exact distance. That's sort of what this parabola is doing. This parabola is literally just reflecting across the y-axis as if it was a mirror. So when it reflects like that, we say that it's symmetric. This parabola is symmetric with respect to the y-axis. So that means that it's symmetric across the y-axis. So now let's do the same thing in two other cases. So now let's draw another graph. And let's draw a sideways parabola. So it'll look something like this. So that's your center. Let's just approximate that that's the center. And if you can tell, the parabola, like one part, the top half, seems to be reflected across the bottom half. But in this case, this is our line of symmetry. This is where it's being reflected. This is sort of like that mirror point, this line. This line is actually the x-axis. So that means that this parabola is symmetric across the x-axis. In our other case, on the left, it was symmetric across the y-axis because the mirror was sort of like placed vertically. But in this case, it's being reflected horizontally, so it's going to be reflected across the x-axis. In this case, we say that the graph is symmetric across the x-axis. Okay, so now let's do our last case of symmetry. So we have a graph on the far right, and it looks something like this. So it looks like this. It kind of like curves in towards the origin, and then it kind of curves out. So now, if you can tell, it does look like there's two halves. So like if you look at the right, this is one half, but it's not being reflected on this end. So it's not reflected across the y-axis. And it's not being reflected like this. In that case, it would be reflected across the x-axis. But instead, it seems to be that this center point is like that point of reflection. It's as if you had like a mirror right there that's like a center instead, and it sort of goes inside and comes out the opposite way. When it's looking like that, we say that this is symmetric across the origin. The origin is also the point 0, 0 on the graph. So the origin, or the center of the graph, is where it's symmetric across. So kind of when it has that sort of inverted feel, because it's not reflecting across a vertical line nor a horizontal line. It's sort of reflecting across that center point. So it's going to be symmetric across the origin.